What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're actually diving back into the free-to-play account because this week's midweek magic is actually Phantom Sealed. I think this is a fun event to try out, especially as a newer player, to try out a format that maybe you haven't played before. Sealed is a unique format where you open cards from 6 packs, typically of the same set, and your goal is to build the best 40-card deck out of those 6 packs. Kind of similar to Draft, but you're not passing packs around. With whatever you open is kind of what you can only have access to build with, so that's kind of like the big key differences here. This one is Phantom, so any of the cards you open up in this event don't get added into your collection. The upside is at least the event is free, so you don't have to actually waste any currency to actually enter. And if you do end up winning a few games, you do get something out of it at the end. It may not be 6 packs worth of cards, but you may get a couple cards and a cosmetic at the end, which is definitely not that bad. These kind of events pop up here and there. Sometimes they do also ones for drafting, which is also very fun if you want to practice the new cards in a draft format before you actually dive into the format and try it out for yourself. I don't think there is actually currently a sealed format for Wilds of Eldraine, so if you like this sealed event, you can't actually, unfortunately, invest into actually playing in one. I think the only sealed event that's currently on Arena is for Shadows of Over Innistrad Remastered, and I don't think you actually use gold to enter. I think you can only use gems, so that is kind of a little bit of a downside that is currently going on. But like I said, this is actually a free event. We're not going to spend any currency. If anything, we're going to only end up with additional currency plus a couple extra cards. We're not going to end up with any of the cards we open, but this will be what we use to build our deck. But with that being said, let's just dive into the event and kind of see what we open. So here we have our 6 packs. We'll simply click this open button. They will all explode, showing off all of the cards that we got, or not, I guess. I was expecting it to kind of open up like how the rest of the cards open when you open a pack, but I guess we have our biggest hits out of everything. So we have an Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which could end up being very good. We have an Ashiok. Planeswalkers typically are pretty interesting overall in this limited format. We have a Tortoise, which is definitely solid. A Unicorn could be good as well because it's a card that's going to get bigger and bigger. Could be hard to handle. So overall, I would say our pack opening was actually pretty solid. I could see us playing like a deck that is a combination of like green and white with an Soul Cauldron for some additional effects. This card's definitely very good as well. So definitely got some possibilities. There are also some rares / mythics we did not open because it says here these are the rares, I guess, that we opened. But I guess because this is one of those sets that have like that additional slot, it's possible that we could have opened some interesting cards in other slots like this slot here. So we will see the rest of the cards and what we open by hitting the continue button. Looking through what we got, we can kind of get an idea of what we pulled overall. We have, a very good amount of pages of various cards. It seems like we got a decent spread of all the colors. One of the things I like to do before we really dive in is probably go into more so this format. I know it's a little bit harder to see, but the good thing is you can always hover over, a card to kind of get a better look at it. And the idea here is what I first want to do is kind of like see what we got when it comes to terms of removals. So like anything that's going to exile something, interact with the board, and kind of just pull it out and kind of see how many of what color we have, and maybe that will help us guide our way to maybe what colors we want to play. So like Glass Casket here is a decent removal in white. We're going to get rid of the lands because we're not really building a deck with it. We're just kind of seeing what removal we have. I'm just going to keep on scrolling through and just kind of see overall what we have just to kind of deal with the battlefield in general, because this is kind of one of those formats where you kind of want to slow down what your opponent's doing but also build up at the same time, and if we don't have any sort of way to deal with it, we may get ran over in the end. So it doesn't seem like besides Glass Casket anything else in white, and we'll just kind of continue going here. Like in this thing, like a Freeze in Place is actually not a bad card for blue. Blue's not going to have anything that's going to destroy a creature, but it'll have ways of slowing down your opponent's creatures. Curse Roll token could be pretty decent, because it's going to turn the creature into like a 1/1. Counterspell is another card that is not bad, but it's something that is not going to, if you have to have the mana open to really do it. And this one in general, we need fairies to really be effective. If not, it's just like a make disappear, but it doesn't even have the benefit of making your opponent pay more if we don't have any fairies out. This creature has technically a deal 1 with the adventure side of it, so that is technically a removal spell because 1 damage to, I guess, any target's not bad. So you can also deal to your opponent's face. Tap 1 or 2 target creatures opponent controls, put a stun counter on each one of them. That's technically removal, so those 2 are not bad. This is like a bounce spell, so it's sorcery speed bounce spell, I guess, and a creature's pretty good. So blue's looking not bad for having some sort of board interaction overall. This one is just a discard and stuff until end of turn. When this creature dies, okay. This is a -1/-1. Not the strongest, but it's technically still removal because -1/-1 could definitely do something. Target creature gets -3/-3 into end of turn. If the spell's bargain, it gets -5/-5, so also removal. Anything else? It's +3/+0. This is a guy that cooks rats, doesn't actually give any sort of removal, makes food. Create 2 black creature tokens. Card puts exile, put a +1/+1 counter. Look at the top 2 cards, exile one of them. Possibly, it doesn't really have removal built into it, but it's definitely a very powerful card, which definitely could see some play. A card with Death Touch is technically like a creature removal because if it blocks anything, even if it's bigger, it will still destroy that card. Fairy Fencing is definitely good because if we play a bunch of fairies, they'll get additional -3/-3 on top of whatever we pay for X, so definitely not bad there. So far, we do have a decent spread of removal in various colors. I would say blue and black are currently looking the strongest when it comes to terms of removal. Just because black typically has the best straight up removal when it comes to a 1/1. We do have 2 red burn spells, which is definitely not bad either. And these just get better based on how many instances of sorceries we have in our graveyard, so it definitely works out pretty well there. Besides that, though, I guess that is technically removal. Cut in 4 damage to target creature, and then we put a hero roll token on a creature. I mean, Fire Emancipation is a card. It will turn any of our damage removal or any sources of... If a sorcery we control will deal damage to a player, it deals triple that damage. So it's another bomb card, right? It's going to be, it's going to turn any of our creatures into like big hitters. So it's kind of like benefits our removal if it's damage removal and also makes our creatures that much stronger. So definitely a card we're going to consider when it comes to building. So red, has 3 removal spells. Still not bad. When it comes to green, though, this is, I guess, technically removal because it's a fight spell. Nothing too much in terms of green. I guess that technically has removal, so if we do green-black, we could play the Gingerbread Hunter. So that looks like it's going to be it for removal in green. We didn't get too much there. And then we'll just take a quick look at multicolor. And then take a quick look in colorless. So overall, we definitely got a decent spread of removal. Outside of the blue spells that we got that have like bounce effects and things like that, we can take a quick look and see what else we got going on in blue. I think Quick Study is pretty solid. And there's a battlefield I can pay 2 when I do tap target opponent. Opponent controls and put a stun counter. Not bad. It's either a 1/1 or possibly a card that's going to help us, slow our opponent down. So definitely not bad there. Sacrifice this, draw a card, put a sorcerer's token onto 1 target creature control, activate only as a sorcery. Could play like something like a Spread and Seize. This is definitely a unique card. It turns your opponent's mana color off or helps fix our mana if we need blue, and we get to draw a card out of it. And then that's about it in blue. So blue's okay. It's not super strong, per se, when it comes to actual card strength overall. I mean, it does have a decent amount of like stun things and those things, but it doesn't have any like big powerful spells. When it comes to black, this card's okay. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's not a bad card for 1 mana, so it's maybe something that you could put in a deck. This is kind of like a combat trick type spell. Spiteful Hexmage is also not bad because you can always sacrifice a cursed roll for a bargain kind of thing. So it's a 1 mana 3/2, so could be very good. If we're going to be playing a little bit of fairies, we could always play the Borrow Naughty. It's a 1/3 fairy that also gains lifelink if we control another fairy, so definitely a playable card. This is just a 2 mana 3/1, and when it dies, we get a food. Yet again, a bargain chip. Combat Trick, we could possibly play if we need to. Enters battlefields, we can sacrifice a creature, scry 2 and draw a card. Creatures control gain Menace. Or we can make a rat token. Not a bad card. It's definitely going to fill up the battlefield. Makes a food token, helps us helps us drain our opponent, I guess, later in the game. Enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 creature that can't block, and then whenever another creature we control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's not a bad card. We do have many ways of bargaining things. Ashiok's definitely solid. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to create a food token, so we got stuff for bargaining. And then in red, in terms of stuff, and just battlefield, draw a card, and change a creature has fire breathing essentially, so we can pay 1 red mana and make the deal that much more. If 2 things enter the battlefield, target creature we control gets +1/+1 against menace. Enters the battlefield, we pay 1 if we do create a hero token attached to our creature we control. It's just a 4/2 or a +2/+1. This guy creates a treasure, which isn't that bad. So in a weird way, it's a 3 mana 2/3 with a little bit of ramp, because that treasure could come in handy. If we're casting a decent amount of spells, this Unruly Catapult could actually be pretty solid because it's a 0/4 blocker. And then every time we cast an instant or sorcery, you can untap it. So we can ping somebody, play an instant or sorcery, untap it, ping somebody again, which could be pretty solid. We got 2 of them, so it's actually pretty good there. 4/3, sacrifice an artifact or a land and draw a card, has reach. Could be something that we could consider. Fire Emancipation would be kind of hard to pull off in a 3-color deck, though it is super powerful. So that is kind of where we're at with red. Could be a card that we splash in. We could be really a blue-black deck with a little bit of red, which is definitely not something that is that hard to do. This is just a way to look at top 5 cards, reveal creature. So it's a dig for a creature, enchant a creature, add a green mana. Season of Growth is not bad. Helps us scry, and whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature we control, draw a card. Grains of Food, Troublemaker Oofy, Blossom Tortoise. I'm probably just gonna play the Cauldron, just because the Cauldron's just a solid card. It's gonna pump our creatures. If our opponents do have any things with activated abilities, we can always make our creatures gain those abilities. Other than that, I don't think we really have a ton of stuff. We'll put the Grotto in the deck. We'll put the Evolving Wilds in the deck. Grotto's is going to help us mana fix, which is always solid. We could probably also put the Ginger Brute in our deck, just because it's a solid 1 mana card. And I do think we get rid of the green. I don't think we're going to play green. Anything else that really stands out? So like blue-black is definitely a possibility. There is also a play that if we didn't go blue-black, we could definitely go green, because green has a lot of creatures. Like, for example, we could go green-blue and take out black completely, or do green-blue and splash in black for like maybe the more powerful cards that we have in our deck. Just because there's some good cards there. I mean, it's definitely something we could consider. So if we do take these cards out, we could put in cards like the Turtle. We could put in cards like the Tough Cookie, which is not bad. We could put in the Gingerbread Hunter. We could put in like a little bit of ramp and a creature. We can still have another Ginger Brew. I didn't realize I had 2 of them. This Food Clue can be pretty solid just because we can tap 2, sacrifice, and draw a card. Like this card's not bad just because it helps us filter our mana, so we can pay 1 mana of a color that we don't have and play it with this. The Troublemaker Oofy is not a bad card because it helps us, deal with artifacts or enchantments that could be problematic by bargaining. I guess if we're playing green, we could always play in that removal. We'll put in the Oofy. This card's not bad because it makes all our food then turn into mana creatures or mana rocks for green, which then would help us overall. I'm actually going to start taking some cards out in these colors just because what I'm going to let this do is when I re-add them back in, it will put them in the CMC order that they are, if I can highlight them over. And our goal is we want probably about 23 playables overall when it comes to our deck building. Just because that's going to help us with dealing with adding in 17 lands. We already have 3 lands, so we have 11. So we got 12 other cards, maybe in blue and black. Quick Study solid, just because it's going to help us draw cards. Curiosity could be pretty good, just because whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, we can draw a card. Definitely could come in handy. You put this on like a little Ginger Brute. The Ginger Brute gets for free. We then get the ability to get in some free card draw, which could be not a bad little 1-2 combo. The Snare Master's not bad because it is a creature. So if we do play the black removal, we can then play that. Freeze in Place is not a bad stall kind of card. I'm going to say the Gadwick's First Duel's pretty good, just because the Wicked ability of it could come in handy. Spread and Seize we could add, just because I do think it's a very strong card. We're not going to be playing red, so I don't think the Frolic Familiar is as good. Because it's like a prowess creature. It's a prowess otter that gets a little stronger, but it's something that we may not be focusing on. I do think Succumb to Cold is not bad as well as a way to kind of stall. And a 2-mana bounce something with 3 or less. Something target creature we don't control with mana 3 or less could be pretty solid as well, with a 6/5 body on the other side, so it could become like a big thing. And then we go into black. I think the 1-drop is solid. We'll play the Fairy. I think the Bargain removal is really good. I guess if we're playing food, the Sweet Tooth Witch could be definitely not bad. And I'm at 22, roughly. What else do we have? I guess we could then play Ashiok. And I do think Fairy... The Fairy Fencing is not still a bad... It's not a bad removal, even if we don't have a Fairy out, just because we can still pay X and give something -X based on whatever we pay. But in terms of removal, I'm just going to drag out cards that will do some sort of removal effect. So we have that. We have that. I mean, this card's not bad. But, I mean, we're not making a ton of food, though some of our creatures do count as food, so it's kind of like that up in the air card. Like, this could be something that we could probably remove. It is a little bit of ramp, though it's 7 effect, where you sacrifice and give everything +X, where number of the food is not going to be the biggest, but it could be something that helps us finish the game, but I do think we take it out. I just think, like, Cauldrons is too strong of a card to take out. Where are we? I guess Gadwick's First Duel is kind of like removal, because it just turns whatever it is into -1. Candy Grapple is also removal. Ufi's more enchantment and artifact removal, not really complete removal. Succumb to Cold is kind of like overall removal. But I think with what we have, this is 23, if you don't count the land. So we do have space for adding in lands back into the deck. So... Now we got to break down the math of what is the color spread of our deck overall. So typically, if you were to do this the other way, the game would kind of do the breakdown for you of your land spread, but which is usually pretty decent on its own. But one of the ways that I typically think when I typically do my mana spread when it comes to figuring out what how to split the 3 mana colors is you look at what your CMCs of everything are. In this terms, I guess they count how many blue cards, how many green cards, and how many black cards. But you also have to consider if there's any spells that you have that have double green or double black. Like, for example, you want to make sure that you kind of, like, in a weird way, you kind of want to have maybe that, if black is not your most popular color, but you have a card with double black, you may want that one additional instead of another one. So it is that, like, that fine line of kind of figuring out which one is which, like, when it comes to what you prefer. So in terms of this, we have 3 slots open. We already used 3 slots of our 17, so we have 14 total lands. So like a good spread could be like do 5. If I'm not mistaken, it's green and blue. So you do 5 and 5. So 5 green, 5 blue. And then you do 4 black, which equals 14. And then plus the other 3, which should help us fix our mana, then equals the rest of the mana base. If you wanted to, you could probably... I don't know. You could, in theory, also, if you think that blue is not bad because it's like single blue with everything, you could go down to 4 blue and then do a 5th black if you think like making sure you have that extra black for the Ashiok could be a thing. The one good thing about this event is that you're not limited to how many overall games you have to play before you lose. You can keep on playing and make adjustments. So if you play like a game or two and your mana base doesn't work immediately, you can then kind of tweak it and kind of figure out what's not working right with it. But I do think for like the first game, this could be definitely a decent overall mana base to kind of work around with. I think the deck's okay. I'm not going to say it's anything crazy. We do have some, mythic bombs that we did pull. There are cards in here that we could probably make another deck with if we wanted to afterwards, as well as I do think, messing around with like something like the Regal Bunnicorn, also messing around with like Fire Emancipation, maybe just try to see if there's like a deck that we just go like over the top with. Like Fire Emancipation plus any sort of damage in general is just going to be crazy. There is decent amount of red here that could make, Emancipation that much better. This turns this Catapult into, instead of pinging for 1, it pings for 3. Any of our burn removal is going to deal 3 times as much. So like this one, for example, instead of doing just 2, if this was the only spell you're casted, it will deal 6 plus X. So it's wild in what you could do there. Just in case, like, for example, you may not be sure of 100% of where your removal is, or you didn't feel like you opened a ton. So let's just say, for example, if we were to kind of scrap this whole deck real quick, what we could do differently if we were kind of removal light. There are cards that I guess we only saw a couple times or didn't see at all. So let me just kind of start getting rid of this in general. 1 second, almost there. Okay, so let's just say we reset again. And let's just say you're kind of removal light. Like, for example, you really only have like some solid red and white spells or something like that. So like Glass Casket, it being one of your removal spells in white. And then you just have a couple spells in red. Let's just say, for example, those Fire Bolts are one of your spells. Other than that, I guess Cut In is another spell. And let's just say that is kind of like where your removal is. One thing you can do as a player who's building a deck to kind of combat maybe having lack of removal is also adding cards that have combat tricks to them. Something that you can do at instant speed to maybe catch your opponent off guard. So in this instance, because in this scenario I'm making up, this is our only removal. Adding in, we are probably playing red, so this card turns into possibly a combat trick, whether on offense or defense. You give me your creature +2/+1 at instant speed is going to be solid. Catch your opponent off guard there. Another thing too, like when it comes to white, I'm not sure what white has. This one's not bad. It's sorcery speed. This does make your creature not be able to be blocked by a creature that's bigger than it, so early game damage is not bad there. Like a tap spell, in theory, as much as it's not removal, is a solid way to get some extra damage in. So like that becomes technically like a combat trick or something to set up the board state. You can cast this at the end of your opponent's turn when they cast a spell, make them have to tap it so they can't use it as a blocker. You then get to scry one and then draw a card. That turns into something pretty solid. This card, in a way, could be very good as well. Being able to return something back from the graveyard if it ended up in the graveyard early is another good way to like get your cards back if they do die in combat. Just keeping through, I guess in this set, for example, these roll tokens are actually very good. They make your creature stronger and harder to deal with. Giving your creature like this royal aura on it is going to make it harder to deal with because it's going to have Ward of 1, so they'll have to pay that 1 additional to actually target it with a spell or it gets countered. So like that's definitely not that bad of a card to deal with. Even a card like this, right? With the idea of this set having a bunch of cards with these roll tokens, if you have some decent cards that will get these rolls, this card becomes actually very solid because every time you have one of these rolls come into the battlefield, you're going to be able to tap something down. Sure, it's going to be very dependent on that card, but it's definitely not a bad card to have if you feel like you have a lot of cards that could be able to do that effect. This is definitely not bad. This is a card that's going to help us make tokens and then get extra copies of tokens that we have. Those roll counters are actually tokens themselves. So you can copy rolls that you may have out in the battlefield. It's definitely going to be one of those things that you kind of have to experiment with. Definitely, I do think that's the one great thing about this event is that there's a lot of stuff that you can experiment with, kind of try out for example. If you don't like something, or maybe you added something or wanted to try out whether these colors kind of work together, you could definitely kind of do that with this event, just because there is no play until you lose 3 games. You can just keep on playing, keep on combining the cards you got. So definitely going to be very good there. Let's just say this is kind of like our spread for like red white. I do think the other card I would probably play is the Bunicorn, just because it's a good card. That card's not that great. It's okay. This card's okay as well. This card's not bad. It's a 3-mana 2/3 with first strike, and then if we have 2 things enter the battlefield with the celebration effect, this will then gain double strike, which is pretty solid. So that's definitely something you could combine with, like a card that's going to give +2/+1 if it has double strike, and then make it deal that much more damage. Other thing too with this color pie, like if you're going to be trying to go more aggro and more combat tricky, Fire Emancipation is going to be like, if you I'm not saying that you're going to pull this, but if you did pull it, this would be a good combo to go with a deck that's like this, where you're playing tricks and playing spells that are going to be trying to catch your opponent off guard. If we look into our multicolor here, this also has like celebration, so we have ways of, if we can just get multiple things on the battlefield at the same time, this will get +1/+1 counters. It also has haste for 2 mana, which is very good. We could also look into this card, it being a little more expensive, but this is a card that's going to help us make our enchanted creatures that much stronger. So this is kind of like saying, hey, maybe you want to lean into green to play this card if you're going to also play those rolls. So like this card stands out as being a card that we'd be like, well, if we're playing roll tokens, maybe that is a card that we want to add. And then you kind of look through your green and you're kind of like, okay, well, what do I got in green that could do stuff like that? If we are playing enchantment type stuff, this Bestial Bloodline is pretty solid. It's a aura that keeps on coming back if we spend 5 mana if it ends up in the graveyard. You could look at cards like this Removal in green, which is definitely not bad. That card that's going to add a roll and then be able to fight something, so it's going to work very well with our synergy. This card itself, creates a monster roll token at instant speed, so you can catch your opponent off guard at instant speed combat tricks, which is definitely good. Just kind of looking through, reading the cards. A lot of times with these style of decks, you kind of have to read the cards, kind of figure out, what effects do you think that you have that are very similar. As you see here, I just kind of spent, I don't know, like 5-ish minutes kind of going through cards, kind of reading them. We are at 20 cards. We just needed, I guess, another, like, in this instance, probably just another, like, 3 cards just to kind of round us out into this. We're not very heavy into red. Maybe we want to take a quick look and just double check to make sure we didn't miss anything. Like, this card's a 3-mana 3/3. Pretty good right there. It's very solid. This one's pretty good. When it enters the battlefield, we can pay additional 1. We can put a hero roll token on something, so definitely a good creature. And then I think something like, this Red Cap Thief, 3-mana 2/3, enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. That's going to work very well with that celebration mechanic, because that counts as 2 different permanents enter the battlefield on a given turn. And then you just have this guy. It's a 4-mana 4/3 with reach, and you can sacrifice an artifact or land and draw a card. It's definitely something that you could possibly use. We don't have a ton of artifacts in this deck that I put together, but it's definitely something that we could also consider. Sometimes, like I said, I put it in my last deck just because I do think it's a solid card. I think Agatha's Soul Cauldron's a card that you just kind of like add, right? Because it's a very powerful card regardless. It's colorless mana. The other effects of it are just anything added beneficial. Worst case scenario, you're eating things from the graveyard, putting +1/+1 counters on your things, make your things that much bigger, which works in a deck that may be light on removal. So I think that's just like an auto add. And then you just kind of take a quick look and kind of see like, well, what else can I remove? Probably add it because we're at 24. There's a possibility that you could possibly get rid of like the cut in. You could probably maybe cut down on this Rimful Reindeer, because I do think the rest of the deck could get it done when it comes to overall things. This card, it's okay, right? I do think this like last turn saga part of it is very good. I do think the 2 and 3 abilities, just creating copies of roll tokens you have, is going to be very good. It's definitely going to do a lot. Pie Guy is pretty good. Mary Bards is okay. There are some cards we could probably cut, like, maybe now that we have some cards that are very powerful, maybe the Daredevil isn't as good as it once was, because I think it doesn't do anything that we're doing with like the rolls. So maybe that's a card that gets cut. I think the Thief is very good because it's a 3-mana play, and then you're going to get additional, like this 1 treasure token turns into that 1 additional mana. So I do think that like the Daredevil ends up actually being a cut. And then we kind of go into here. You go into your breakdown of colors. We have 12 white cards, 8 red cards, and 4 green cards. So depending on what, lands you open up, you probably want to add in like, the copy of Evolve Wilds, of course. Grotto is very good. I didn't add it here, but I probably want to actually add in this card, right? Because we got to fix our mana. So probably add in this 2-drop card that's going to help us, tap 1 to tap and add 1 mana of any colors. Probably going to be very beneficial in the long run. So we can actually probably cut something. Maybe the Plunge into Winter is actually not the card we want to add because we're not doing the tap thing. Sure, tapping his bat is pretty good, but I do think, making sure our deck is pretty solid in that way. So we're still at 23 cards in the main deck, and then we still only have 3 lands. When it comes to the mana base, it's 11, 8, and 5. So if we are at 14 total lands, if we go to lands real quick, you probably want to go like 6. Part of me wants to say like 5, which is 11, which only leaves room for 3 green, which may be a little light. Maybe go down to 5, 5, and 4. Like that's a possibility of a spread of a land base. This Fire Emancipation may be a little tricky, right? Because the problem is why Fire Emancipation is a good card, but also a very hard card. It could be a card that just ends up being stuck in our hand. Is because of that triple red, and even with 5 red. You have to think that we're going to have to draw 3 of these basic mountains. We do have some ways to filter the mana if we need to, but it's going to still be a challenge. So it's kind of like a very like high upside, like greedy play that we could play, but there's a lot of instances when we do draw, it may not be as good. It's another possibility too that our deck outside of this card is actually very solid on its own. So there's a possibility you could, now looking at our deck, we could be like, well, I guess that's a cut, right? Now we don't need that card. We do have some other solid cards in general. We could look at maybe some cards that we maybe didn't actually add into the deck. This is a 2-mana 3/1, and then you can get plus 0/+2 as long as 2 permanents on the battlefield. It's not a bad card. It's not a great card. I don't know. It's definitely this kind of like give and take of when it comes to balancing out your deck. You know what? For the sake of it, maybe be greedy. Maybe you do add the Fire Emancipation. There is a possibility that all our white spells only cost. One white, and everything else besides this spell is double red. So there's a possibility that you go 4, 4, and 6, and just be more aggressive in red just to make sure you hit red. Downside is that you probably hit more red than you hit the other colors, but we do have ways to filter mana. So it's definitely one of those give and takes when it comes to kind of figuring out what works best when it comes to playing some, crazy good spell with a very expensive mana cost overall. But I kind of want to dive into this just to kind of give you another perspective of where you could go when it comes to putting a deck together. Our opponent's going to go first. Hand's a little awkward, right? Because we are playing 3 colors. We don't have any green mana, so these cards are kind of dead, though it's not that bad either, just because we do have, like, this is the only card that's really dead, and we have removal here, so I do think it's still playable. It is a 2-lander. Which is definitely a risky keep. But I do think it's going to work out overall. So, like, we have many options here, whatever they play. So, for example, I could bounce it back, deal 1. I could also bargain it and just -3/-3, and then hit him for 3. I think just making them have to replay something like this is kind of annoying, but not like the worst thing. And then like them having to spend their turn to replay it could be frustrating. We got our 3rd land, which is solid. And then in terms of this, I'm just going to bargain it because I might as well make our creature bigger. So I bargain this. It'll give it -5/-5. And then we have a 3/2. And the crazy part is, next turn, I could play Cauldron here, and I can literally take this, and then my creatures with +1/+1 counters will gain the ability just to tap something down, which is definitely not that bad. We have a fight spell now that's unlocked. So we do have a decent amount of plays that we can do here. Sure. Grotto is not bad. We get a scry out of it. I'll take the land. Lands are always solid. It's a 2/2. This will give it +1/+1. Yeah, so we'll target creature we control. Target creature I don't control. We'll hit it for 4. Next turn we have another removal spell. In a way. Alright, opponent's not going to do anything, which is good for us. So I'll play Cauldron. I'm just going to immediately eat this creature. And grow our creature. And I guess our opponent's just going to scoop it up. Because there's a possibility that they may have had 3 mana removal. Right? Or a removal that was going to do like 3 damage to this creature. But because we grew it, it kind of counteracts maybe their plan, and they just, I guess, scoop because they either missing a color or just our card was just going to get too big for them to deal with. And we got a little bit of gold. We got a little bit of XP. We get our first random card, which is a mythic. We got In the Trenches. A decent card. I wouldn't say it's anything exciting, but it's not a bad card. You know, mythic is cool to get as a free card. We'll go first. I think our hand's solid overall. I'm going to start with a Grotto, actually, because I can play Gingerbrute with it. So there's no impact to me playing this colorless land. I get a scry out of it, so I get to look at my first card draw of the game. So we're just going to start with a Grotto. Yeah, Forest is fine. Play Gingerbrute. We'll attack in for 1. Our opponent's probably like, wait, they played a colorless land and still had to play like crazy. We have our Grotto 2, which is going to help us filter our mana. We are just going to play Beanstalk Worm, which will allow us to play additional lands. So we'll just play a green. And we'll just swing it for 1 again. And we're already up to 4 mana on turn 3, which is pretty good. Our opponent's kind of fallen behind in that regard. 3/1. Cool. So this turn could go 2 different ways. We could just fill the board up with creatures, which is definitely not bad. We could get rid of their creature. We could put I think the play would probably be is to put this card out, which will help us ramp up a little bit and play a tough cookie. And I'm just going to swing it for 1. They don't make this trade, more than likely, if I was them, just because it being a 1/1. They're not going to trade a 3/1 for a 1/1. But you never know with opponents. And now it's their turn to kind of figure out what to do with our board state. Because next turn, we basically have our Burnt Beanstalk Worm that's kind of face up. We also have this Gingerbeard Hunter that they're not aware of that's in our hand. So we have two cards that are pretty good in this scenario. Their creature land can't turn into a creature just yet. They don't have the white and black on top of it being white and black. Sure. I guess they're going to get their free hit in. Nope, they're going to step back. Which isn't too bad for us. I'm just going to attack him for 1. At some point, they either have to block or don't do anything about it, and then we're going to get a 5/4. So they have to have another removal spell that will deal with the 5/4. A little bit harder to deal with. I probably won't block either, just because if they decide to attack, I'll hit back harder. Sure. And a food. And no attacks. I always find... So the one thing that is kind of troubling when it comes to that is... I guess when you don't attack, and you just kind of like leave, I guess, damage on the battlefield. It's like, I don't think they were ever going to block the 1/1, and they probably would assume I'm not blocking with that 1/3. So it's a little interesting, I think, overall. And the only play here is that they can chomp the food and grow the scavenger. Sure. They don't have 2 open. I'm just gonna grab a land. Whoa. What's my mana base? It's... Yeah, we'll grab a blue. Cauldron's good. But I think we're going to start with a bargain here. We're just going to get rid of their creature. I guess we'll chomp the food. Just to make sure. There's no big issue with it. We will play our Cauldron. We will, I guess, eat this. And we'll put the counter there. And then in theory, if we ever wanted to, we could always have the Fawn eat the Ginger Brew to gain also +1/+1 counter. Which is kind of interesting, I think, of an overall mechanic. I guess they can also pay 3 and exile my 5/4. This is just a 2/3 menace. I guess our opponent scoops. I don't think they were out of it, right? I don't know what's in their hand besides their 2/3. They play the 2/3. It can block this very easily. I guess I have a creature I guess it could eat, and one of their 2 creatures, I could probably just eat the Tough Cookie, turn the Cauldron possibly into a 5/4. That's something that could happen because this will gain Tough Cookie's ability, which is secondary ability is pay 3 mana and turn a non-creature artifact into a 4/4. So Cauldron can become a 4/4, attack into the board state. A little wild, but overall pretty decent second game for us. And we're back. We get a little bit of gold, a little bit of XP. We'll get our random card. And I think it's also mythic. So we got ourselves a word spell. It has read ahead. It's an interesting card. I think I messed around a while back when this was first released to try to see what I could do with it. Overall, pretty good spell. Very expensive. Definitely a very specific deck if you want to play around with that card. And let's see if we can get ourselves our 3rd win. All right, on the play, we go first. So this is a hand that I opened, and I don't want to keep this at all because I can cast these 2 cards, but I have 2 dead cards, and the chances of drawing black mana. Sure, there's 4 black mana sources. There's 2 sources that can filter into black mana, and then there's 1 card that will help us fetch black mana. So 7 total lands. But when you're in a hand like where you have cards that you can't play, you're probably better off just getting rid of a hand and getting into a hand that is a little bit more balanced. I'm going to get rid of the Succumb the Cold, just because I feel like, while good, I do think maybe the fight spell. We don't actually have a creature in our hand, I just realized. So we'll start with that open in hand. And then we'll just play Evolving Wilds. And I'm just going to crack it immediately. There's some people wait until end of turn. Some people crack it immediately. It's up to you. I don't think there's any big problem either way. All right, he's a turn late, but we did get ourselves a Ginger Brute. We will cast ourselves a little Ginger Brute with haste. And we'll end turn. Little 1/3. All right. We got Turtle. Turtle's in the house. Though we're missing... I'm not gonna allow them to ramp. Missing double green is what I was trying to say, and we'll just attack him for 1. So the reason why we got rid of that is that that's gonna allow them to ramp up, and ramp is not good in that situation because then there's a possibility they would cast in a 4-drop this turn. Enters battlefield, another target creature, which they don't have. We are going to turn that into a 1/1. We'll tack in for 1. We'll spend 1, get a free point of damage. And we'll say go. Now the thing is, can we draw our 4th land? Nice. And depending on what happens here... Alright, it's a 4th land. I don't want either of these. I'm looking for a way to deal with this board. Neither of them haste, so we'll just swing it for free, and then we'll end turn. Sure. What's the royal? We'll respond, and we'll just tap these and put stun counters on them. Because I think, yeah, it gave ward, which is something that we can't deal with. Second green, solid. We will do this. We will then cast a quick study, which then draws us 2 additional cards. So we draw 4 cards. Awesome. We'll play a tough cookie. And I guess we just sit back in this situation because we don't have mana open. A 1/1 attacking into a 2/3 is not really that good. So I guess we'll see what our opponent's going to do next. I mean, we had a pretty solid opening. It's just that are we going to have enough to kind of deal with what's going on the board? What does the troll do? Monster roll. And then they can pay 1, sacrifice it. If I target creature I don't control, if that creature would die, instead exile it. Activate only as a sorcery. No blocks. Alright. So I could cast this. I could cast the Witch. Which isn't bad. No attacks, end turn. I have to kind of figure out how to deal with the big creature. We'll do these 2. Because I believe that's non-creature. So we'll get rid of... What, the exile? Okay. So, wait, they could have played a fairy to not exile a fairy? What? That seems a little weird. They don't do anything. Interesting. This is sorcery speed. So they could have also attacked? I'm so confused. I'm going to do my best to do as much damage. If they want to block, they can definitely block. Sure. Awesome. And I do have the ward of 1. Sure. I mean, they still have things that they can deal with, but Yeah, I think they blocked wrong. And then I'll end turn. So I think that was overall pretty solid exchange for us. That's fine. I mean, they could fight if they wanted to. But then they have a 4/4 and they know I have a 5/5. It's up to them. I guess in response, I'll do 2 to you, and I'll sacrifice food. That's fine. We will play our giant big 5/5. And I'll attack in for 1 unblockable. X damage. End turn. So counter their mana. Could be good. I mean, I'm at a healthy life total, so I'm not worried about blocking or taking a lot of damage, because I can eat the small things and then all right, they don't have any sort of spell to get something back. Nice. 2 lands is not what you want to do. They're at 12. They hit us for 7. We hit them for 6. They go down to 6. They have to play a creature. We have food. Yeah, I think this is an attack, making them have to block. Maybe they have a combat trick. Maybe they don't. They take the damage. Wow. Wowie, wowie, wow. So, what is the big play? It's either they're keeping a handful of lands. Sure. It's a 5/5 for now. That's fine. Question is, are they going to try to fight? All right, they're just playing their whole hand. Got it. Sure. We'll get rid of their fight creature. I don't mind taking 1. And I guess they scoop. So, interesting for them overall just to scoop there, right? I could be aggressive, attack in with the 7 damage. They have to double block. They have to at least block 1 of their creatures into this. They still have 2 creatures. I guess it's just that they lost their like key removal card, which in turn then they feel like they fall behind. So, yeah, I guess that was a close game, but I do think we pulled it out in the end, and the 1 fight spell turned out to be the key card we needed. All right, and we're back. So we have our 100 coins, 275 experience. We got our 3rd reward with our deck, and we got ourselves Agatha's Soul Cauldron alternate art. Not that bad. I guess the game was like, hey, you played this card and you're sealed, and I guess we'll give you the alternate cosmetic version of it. So definitely pretty solid. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this an event that you probably check out for yourself? Like I said, I do think midweek Magic events are very good to experiment with. You know, they do have some kind of interesting themes. In this instance, this is one where you play a sealed pool, and your goal is to build a deck out of the cards you pull. If you do this event, let me know what you guys pull in the event. Anything interesting? Anything work out? Did you guys struggle with getting your wins for the thing? If you like the video, hit that like button. Definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, you want to know post new videos like this one here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video.